We're also following a story on Capitol Hill with hours to go before a government shutdown. And House leadership, we have learned, plans to bring the continuing resolution bill that failed yesterday up for a vote, but without a measure to raise the debt limit. Now, the House Republican Congress met this afternoon to discuss a new funding plan. President-elect Trump had posted online this morning saying, quote, if there's going to be a shutdown, let it begin now under the Biden administration because this is a, quote, Biden problem to solve. Speaker Johnson gave few details about ongoing negotiations, but emphasized the government will not run out of money.
We have a unified Republican conference. There is a unanimous agreement in the room that we need to move forward. I will not telegraph to you the specific details of that yet because I've got a couple of things I got to wrap up in a few moments upstairs, but I expect that we will be proceeding forward. We will not have a government shutdown.
Let's turn now to CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns in West Palm Beach, Florida. So, Caitlin, President-elect Trump says if there will be a shutdown, it should happen now under President Biden. Does he want a shutdown?
Well, the blame game is certainly underway, Lindsay, as it often is in these last-minute negotiations. But remember, this is kind of the politics at play here. On one hand, you have Democrats saying, look, we agreed to a deal earlier this week. Johnson had agreed to it with us. We were prepared to go vote on it. Biden was behind that deal. And Elon Musk and then Donald Trump came in and said, wait a second, we don't want this deal. Don't vote for it. And that kind of scrambled everything. That's how Democrats are seeing this. Republicans, at least from Donald Trump's perspective, say that this was a bill loaded up with Democratic priorities and a lot of government wasteful spending, and they didn't like this kind of deal. And, oh, by the way, we would also like a increase or a suspension of the debt ceiling, what the government can borrow. So that complicated a lot of things. But their posture here, at least from the Trump side, is that they wanted to, shake things up and get a better deal out of this ahead of the incoming administration, but that Biden is president so that, voters and the general public would blame him for this. Now, in terms of the political blame game, oftentimes, sometimes the party gets blamed for it, other times they don't. They're kind of looking to the early 90s when Republicans gained seats later on. But the bottom line here, Lindsay, is there are going to be people affected by this, and especially right around the holidays just next week.
I mean, does this portend that the administration could have a sticky time in trying to get legislation passed? We know that Republican margins in the Senate is going to grow, but it's going to shrink in the House.
Yeah, I think that's a key point here, Lindsay, as we're looking forward to next year. Yes, Republicans will have control of everything in Washington next year, the White House, the House, and the Senate. But their margin in the House is actually going to be slimmer than it is right now. Remember, Trump took several Republican members of the House to put in his cabinet, which means there are vacancies, which means that their margin of leading in the House is less than it is now. So this portends a lot of issues for this conference moving forward. And that's why there's a lot of spotlight right now on Speaker Johnson. The reason that he got this deal in the first place, the original deal with Democrats, is because he has to. Remember, 38 Republicans defected and voted against that spending measure last night, even though Donald Trump and Elon Musk and others endorsed it. So there's still a faction within the Republican conference that's opposed to these short-term spending deals, opposed to suspending the debt limit without cuts to actual government spending. And that's been standing before Trump even came to the scene. So this is a difficult situation for the House Speaker and why he has had to cut a deal with Democrats before. But looking to any kind of legislation going forward, it's a very fragile majority.
Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you. CBS News political reporter Zach Hudak is on Capitol Hill now with an update. So, Zach, House leadership is planning to bring the continuing resolution that failed yesterday to a vote just without a measure to raise the debt limit. That is what Donald Trump wanted, that raising of the debt limit. So what are this bill's new chances?
Lindsay, they would not be bringing it to the floor if they thought they did not have a good chance. We will see what happens because what they're going to do is they're going to try to pass this bill through suspension, which is an expedited process where you can't attach amendments and the actual debate on the floor is very short. But to do that, you need not just the majority, but you need 2/3 of the vote. So they're going to need a number of Democrats to actually cross the aisle and vote on this. But the reality is, what this bill ends up being is largely just a stopgap funding bill. It basically keeps the government running through March and allows those GOP members who don't want to suspend the debt ceiling to not have to make that difficult vote between their principles and what they've always fought for on Capitol Hill, and what Donald Trump, the highest ranking member of their party, is calling for them to do, which was a difficult position for them to be in.
So, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but this removal of a debt limit increase appeases the more conservative parts of Johnson's caucus who didn't want to raise the debt limit without reducing spending. But is there any evidence that they have reached across the aisle to Democrats to try and bring some of them into the fold?
Yeah, Lindsay, we know from Hakeem Jeffries, the highest ranking Democrat in the House, he said just a little bit ago that communications have resumed and they are talking with each other and negotiating. So it sounds like there is headway being made, but the question is here, if there are enough Democrats who are so worried about avoiding a shutdown that they are willing to help Republicans out of this jam. Because we saw in the past Congress, time after time, times when Republicans failed to help Democrats out of this jam. It is definitely enjoyable for some Democrats, particularly some of the more progressive members of the party on Capitol Hill here, to watch Republicans squirm here. And the one bonus of this is even passing this, it's going to kick things down through March. But in March, when President Trump is in office, the Republicans on the Hill are going to have to pass another bill. I mean, they could do another stopgap bill and get through to June or something, but that doesn't really help them. They're going to have to keep doing that. So this is a problem that Donald Trump and Republicans are going to have to deal with in the coming months, no matter what.
All right, Zach Hudak, we know you'll be watching. Bring us any updates as you get them. Thanks so much.